All right, everyone, we are in Schoology Visuals 2.0. And the reason why I named it 2.0 today is because we are just going to go a little further with some of the concepts that we did in the previous session. So the agenda fairly much stays the same, but we're going to do a little more in depth with the content. The agenda. All right. Matter. I'm excited to work with students at the University of Cincinnati, and yesterday I got to listen in on an outstanding meeting they had around visual and just course design in general. But I have some slides to share with you from Sarah about course design. We're going to look at some samples of what I mean when I say visuals in courses. And the mobile experience I am going to say for the end in this one. I'm just going to show it all. But just keep in mind that when I am showing you something, if I'm showing you how to create a visual in a material in Schoology, I've tested everything I'm showing you and it works beautifully in iPhone or Android mobile phones. There is some changes in how visuals appear in updates, so I'll be sure to make that distinction then. We're going to look at how to add visuals to materials, but we're going to be focused more on the why. And when we're adding them, the 2.0 version, we're going to look at some of the custom settings to make those visuals look and be aligned in even a better way. So we're going to be looking at some samples first that will help explain that better. I'm also going to be looking more at how to embed videos and materials, and I've got some examples for that as well. So the last one that I have is the hacking your stream. I went through that really quickly in the last session, and so I'm going to jump on that closer to about 20-25 minutes till the end of the presentation. So I have time to really show making your updates sort of pop and my tips and tricks for making sure that nothing is lost on the mobile experience. So that's the agenda for today. And with that, we're going to get started. Today, I actually want to start with, I'm going to pull in another slide. Whoops, and I'm on the wrong one. Super. Give me 1 second. I clicked off the slide I wanted to start with. Sorry, folks. I've totally lost my place. So, well, I'm not going to have this lovely, super impactful one, but I want to show you the resource that you can pull this off of is from the UC Better in 30 series. The first one that I'm going to pull in is a presentation from one of those series, and it was Beyond the Tools, Design for the Non-Designer, Easy Tips for Presentation Materials. So this was a presentation on that Better in 30 site. I will link this in the chat. And then so let me put this in a front view. I am not going to present these slides to you. I'm going to show them to you to sort of look at the why design matters and visuals matter. So clearly we know that visuals engage our audience more. But our working memory has a limited capacity, what our brain can handle at one time. And so for our students and even for adults and everybody even here in this meeting, if you are reading and decoding, if it's all text-based on the screen, your brain is doing a little bit of a harder job to process what's going on in front of it. So there's a lot of information in this slide deck, and I'm going to be sharing this with you. Sarah, if you're on the line, you can unmute. There's a chance she was going to hop in and join us this morning, but she just wasn't sure. So you can unmute at any time if you're in, and if not, I'm just giving a quick overview. All right, there's some really nice compare and contrast visual examples in here. So how do we set up our visuals? HARP, contrast, alignment, repetition, and proximity. And there's examples of all of these. I want to go through this. So contrast, which one is easier to view? Think about when you're building visuals in your courses. Sometimes it's fun to play around initially with colors and backgrounds and all of that, but make sure that the contrast is easy for your viewers to view. Alignment. All right, look at this example versus this example. So both in these examples, the exact same elements are used, the due by Friday stamp, the monkeys, the weekly activities, but look at how this might feel fun to add every visual element you can, like curvy fonts and putting the pictures in there, but clean and simple. If you have your visuals aligned, it will work better. And I'm going to show some examples of how to on this. Repetition, what's the benefit? Unity, consistency. I'm not going to read this all to you because, watch this, weekly activities. If they can start to expect a visual representation of what they're going to do in order. So this is the repetition part. Oops. Every week I'm going to come in and I'm going to watch the Monday video. I'm going to watch the video on the theme and books. Then I'm going to read a book of my choice. Then I'm going to record my flip grid. So basically I'm going to engage with certain things and I'm going to do certain things. And this type of alignment with your weekly activities, if you add your visuals and you add some symbols, I would recommend these are clickable images straight to your content. That's a great example. So I'm not going to share this whole presentation with you, but proximity, we're looking at the comparison between the integrated presentation and separated presentation. All right. So this is a fantastic resource for you. I know in the last few sessions I've led, I've talked about there's plenty of research out there. I just didn't have it at my fingertips. Well, big thanks to Sarah Schroeder for sharing this design presentation with us. So I'm going to copy this link and drop it in the chat for you now. I think it was like design principles for the non-designer. It was from her Better in 30 series. And just, I'm going to show you on this screen if you want to learn more. Better in 30 initially launched during COVID as a parent resource. And so there's more of an archive here for parents. But then a couple weeks ago, it was a teacher section was added. So right under here, teacher resources. There is a link to the upcoming classes. And then the one that I did this, got this one for is Design for the Non-Designer. So you can watch that and listen to Sarah present that as well. So I'm going to drop the Better at 30 link. UC does also provide contact hours. Yep, there she is. And that was perfect timing. Sarah just joined us. I'm so thrilled to have her in here. And folks, we are going to get to the Schoology nuts and bolts shortly, but I started my agenda off with the why. I think the why is so important. So Sarah, if you can hear me, I just went through your slides for Better in 30. I did a very abbreviated version. But are you unmuted? Nope. She might not be able to unmute. Let me see. All right. Drop something in the chat, Sarah, if you're here. All right, guys, I saw her hop in, but I don't know if maybe we're just having sound issues or what. All right, so Better in 30 is a resource that you can use, and University of Cincinnati does send you a certificate for contact hours if you participate in theirs as well. So take a look at those design slides. There is one other slide that I want to share with you. This one is the cognitive load and design basics. Ooh, that's a mouthful. All right, let me pull this over. Now, even in what I just said, cognitive load and design basics, what am I saying? What can my brain handle? And how can I design things to help my brain be better able to handle it? Sarah, if you're on the line, jump in and clarify at any time. All right, I'm going to put this link in here as well. But basically, it just goes through what your brain can handle and how our working memory works. Now, one way that Sarah was talking about this with her students yesterday is one of the ways that she teaches visuals is she has them all just close their eyes and imagine their favorite Christmas. And then when they open their eyes, the first thing that they're asked is, what did you experience? And most of them saw something. We see our memories through pictures. So it's really important that we are keeping visuals as part of our design process. So this one has got some ideas for slide design basics, one idea per slide, using relevant visuals. So these are great tips for you, whether you're building directly in Schoology or you're looking at maybe a slides presentation that you're going to have in conjunction with a live meeting or for students to view in advance. Just remember that bullet points are not your best friend with slides. All right. So I like this last one a lot. She includes in here sort of some tips for how to make that visual work really well. Limited amount of text, even tells you the font type here. Lots of white space, jump to the bottom one, and then a large meaningful image. So cognitive load and design basics, I'm sharing this with you as well. And this is big thanks to Sarah Schroeder at UC. Right, I didn't label that one, but that last one that I just, the last one that I just added is her presentation on cognitive load and design basics. So look at those as references for yourself later if you're trying to learn more about designing impactful courses. And I'm just clearing out a couple tabs I had open. All right, that definitely hits agenda point number 1. Now, why visuals? I didn't find the slide I was looking for, but essentially visuals are not about making it pretty, not about just making it fun. Visuals actually impact the way that the user, the learner, interacts with the material on the screen. So adding visuals is really important. So right here, I'm in one of my blank courses in Schoology. I released a 5-minute tech talk tidbit video on the Schoology ABCs, and I'm going to repost that today. I was going to put a reminder out there yesterday, and frankly, I forgot to put the reminder. So I was going to draw the winner today, but I'm going to save that. I'm going to draw it Monday, extend it to Monday, so that any of you who want to get on this can. But we looked at the ABCs. Add an image to your course and your profile picture. B, build content, and today we're looking at building visual. And C, communicate through updates. So if you still want to get in on that, you can. But let me show you visually why it's important to add that course image. Here we go. So when you do not add a course image, and let's imagine that most of the teachers on your team did not. This is an example of what a second grade student, when they click, now this is from earlier in the year, but when they clicked on their courses, this is what they see. So a lot of people have asked me, like, why does it really matter to put a course image? Well, this visual interaction, or excuse me, this visual is not interactive. There's nothing to differentiate what type of content I'm engaging with. There's nothing that tells me what I'm going to be learning. And if I'm not a great reader, it's going to be even difficult for me to find the titles of the courses. So folks, make sure you add that image. You just edit picture here. I'm not going into the nitty-gritty of how to do all of these things today. Add your picture here. All right, when you are building content, keep visuals in mind. Before this one, I'm going to actually go into import from resources because I'm going to pull in some stuff that's already done with some awesome visual, simple visuals that you can duplicate in your courses. So for this, I'm just going into my group resources, into the school resources under Cincinnati Public Schools. I've added a folder here called For Teachers, Templates, and Materials you can use now. All right, in this first folder, it says Remote Learning Packets Converted to Schoology. It's for grades K1, 4, 6, 9 in ELA and Math, and 11 and 12 in ELA only. All right, I'm going to pull in this 9th grade module. Sorry, I'm going to pull in the 11th grade module. Import. Yep, import it. Okay. And then I'm going to open one other example. I know I told you I'm going to be building from that empty course, but I do just want to show one other example that we looked at yesterday. So this is more getting into the Schoology visual building steps. So I'm going to give you 2 resources. This one is called Design Resources, and there is a style guide. This style guide is a PDF. I'm going to share this with you today. This is what the people who designed those remote learning packet aligned lessons, this is how they organize all of the modules. So they kind of match across. They wanted consistency in their design. And they were doing this as part of their credit at UC. So it walks you through how to get started. It walks you through if you are building a quiz, some tips in designing it, text boxes, media and other tools, embedding when possible. I want to show you this resource first because I'm going to go through a lot of these points. Sorry. Here we go. All right. The example I wanted to show you in 9th grade ELA. And this is going to be released later today, probably about noonish. 9th grade ELA, week 7. All right. Let's take a look at this course setup. There's a parent guide, a Quizlet, departure, short reading. So this doesn't necessarily initially come off as a visual setup. But then once inside of these, I'm going to show you the screen-free activity, which, by the way, teachers, I really recommend that you have something that you're encouraging students to do in a screen-free setting. So we're going to look at that example in here. Now, this setup was done using headings, using nicely spaced out fonts. So the visual layout here that we're getting into is also into how we place our text. And then there is a visual to go along with the content. And this visual gives me a clue about what I'm going to be doing. The student is working in a notebook at a table. She's not working on a computer. She's going to be writing a letter to herself. So right away, this resource is just easier to read. Now, never mind, it's for a 9th grade student. So, but it's very clear. Here's my task. Here are my prompts. And here's a little bit of helpful tip, a note. So as a student, this is a very easy to follow along with visual prompt, and it doesn't actually involve any of the tools in Schoology, such as submitting a test or quiz or participating in a discussion. This was a screen-free Dear Future Me letter. So this is a task. Yes. Oh, Sarah, you're in. Yay.
I am. Can I add one thing about this particular example?
Please do. And first of all, would you mind, I mentioned you and shared your resources. Would you quickly share, just introduce yourself and share what it is you're teaching, and then talk about this resource?
Sure. I'm Sarah Schroeder. I'm a faculty member at the University of Cincinnati in instructional design and technology, and I work with our pre-service teachers primarily, helping them learn design basics and technology integration. And I coordinate our digital learning design certificate. And one of the things that I teach is visual design and digital communication. And this was actually created by one of my students, one of my freshmen. And when we looked at it originally, it was just a giant pile of text. And one of the things I encourage my students to do is chunk things into ordered and unordered lists using the actual, Rosemary, do you mind opening the text editor on this really quickly?
Yeah.
So using the actual text editor buttons, a lot of teachers will type in the number 1, the number 2, or a hash sign. And if you scroll down to that list under the letter prompts, if you do that, it's not screen reader accessible. It's actually an accessibility issue, but then also it doesn't indent and chunk the information visually together for the students. So whether it's younger children or older students, that chunking really helps our brain see where main ideas are, see what information goes together. It makes it much easier to process. And so if you select the unordered or the ordered list button at the top of the editor, it will indent them properly, it will space them properly. And then if you want an extra space, if you go to the end of one of those ordered list items, like where it says until senior year, and you hit Shift and Return, it will add a carriage return there and add some space, which is a little trick that a lot of folks don't know when they're using a text editor, is just that Shift Return in an ordered list will give you that space to increase the chunk and kind of help people process it. The other thing is those headings. To be consistent and be screen reader accessible as well, you want to select your text and then go to the heading option. You don't just want to bold it and change the font size. You want to make sure you go here and you select heading. One, it makes sure that Maxine's headings look like Carrie's headings, look like Christina's headings, and that students can tell this is a heading right away. But also for students using screen readers, instead of just saying, you know, strong 14-point font, it'll say heading 1, and then it'll tell them it's a heading. So it helps in terms of accessibility as well.
And Sarah, I thank you so much for that too, because I was using these and then I didn't necessarily like the spacing. Now I will say when I'm copying them over to it, just an update, that doesn't apply. But I had a lot of people thinking that I was saying don't use these headings. I just like paragraph. I'm saying I don't like them for updates because the spacing doesn't work well in updates. These, when we think about text accessibility and using tools like Read and Write, it's essential that we use these tools, right?
Yeah, and if you don't like the size or the color, keep heading 1 as your formatting style, but you can still select that text and make it bigger. You can make it a bright color or a bold color. But if you're going to use color, make sure you're consistent with that as well. So every heading is blue or every heading is purple. Don't make one heading red and one heading blue and one heading purple. If they're all headings signifying this is a different chunk of information, keep them consistent in their color and size. And that will help the students' brains process that very quickly versus it is just, there's so much research to show that our brains processing written language is a lot of work, a lot of work, and that our brains work left to right. So a lot of times in the US, at least, and a lot of times we want to center things because we like the way it looks. But other than a title for an entire page, I would not recommend centering your text because, again, we read from left to right. So it just reduces that cognitive load, that pressure on our brains to process the language and make sense of it if we can see them on a left-hand alignment.
Yeah, and I even remember when you were talking about designing this, when you were conferring with your student and she was creating this page, you guys ended up putting the picture to the right to keep that streamlined justification to the left.
Yes, because it was really messing with the spacing of our headings as well.
And so in here, I'm going to show. Oh, go ahead.
Gregory asked about relating this to math.
Okay.
And I think this is relevant anywhere you're delivering content for students. So if it's instructions that you're writing, if it is word problems you're giving them, any of that, the same text formatting practices work to help just make it look professional and clean, help reduce confusion, and help reduce that brain load when we're processing it. And it may not seem like it's important, but it's really funny when you look at the unformatted page versus the formatted page, you instantly go, oh, yeah, that makes a huge difference, right? So yeah, Gregory, that's a great question, is how can you relate that? And that may be, don't put a bunch of clip art in that has nothing to do with the math problems they're answering. Only use images that actually reinforce the ideas or actually encourage the learning. So that's another tip. Is clip art is, teachers love clip art. We love it.
Especially primary teachers, very guilty. I still love it, but I've been considering a lot more heavily how I use it. So I've been trying to use a lot more connected to the content-based images. So
yeah, and if you go to the bottom of this page, you'll see the student put in a little tip, a need help, like to go to Grammarly. So for math also, I know I'm not a great math student. I struggle. And so if I don't know the information and I don't have a teacher in front of me to ask, to go back through this with me, I may want a need help there. And for me to see it and find it and notice it, you'll notice it's bolded, it's highlighted in yellow. You'll notice nothing else on that page is highlighted in yellow. Because this is what we want them to see at the end. We don't want them to skip it.
Mhm.
So maybe it would be linking to a little Khan Academy video that walked me back through it if I'm struggling, or a link to a page that defines a term for me that I might be struggling with. And Read and Write does a great job at that. If you're using Read and Write for students, if they turn Read and Write on, it will actually give them visual it'll give them visual definitions. So like if they mouse over the word house, it'll show a picture of a house. So
Mhm.
encourage your students to turn that on. But if they don't have an on or don't have access to it,
Well, and
putting
so
in
just
links.
to quickly clarify for our district, we do all
Yeah.
have Read and Write added. So I usually start off so often with make sure you are signed in and sync is on. That is not just a staff tip, everybody. That is staff and students. Because when sync is on, Read and Write is automatically pushed out to them. So whether they're at home or not, if they are on the Chrome browser, signed in and sync is on, they have access to Read and Write.
Yeah, and Maxine asked in the chat, and I think this is an important clarification, what the difference is between using a common font and style in the heading 1, heading 2. And one, keeps it consistent from, it can help keep it consistent from class to class, but then two, the screen readers just don't recognize a common font style and heading number, or font style and font size, to designate to the student that something important is here and that there's a new chunk of information for them to look at.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm so glad you hopped in to clarify some of
No
that,
problem.
because I know people were talking visuals, and you know me, I'm the primary background person. I like to make things colorful, fun, and very often my idea of visually engaging is about the fun side of things. Now, not because I think it's just fun. I always share that the research shows that a user or learner of any age is more engaged when there are visuals. But today in Visuals 2.0, we're going to the next level and really looking at the visual layout of font choices, of where you place your images, and even how you can edit those images once they're inserted. So in my other videos, I have shown you many times how to insert an image or media, and then we insert that, and I've shown you how to drag and resize it. Today, as part of the 2.0 version, we are looking at some of the image settings. And because actually Sarah worked this one with her students. Sarah, do you want to talk why you chose the items that you did to add here in editing your image? Like why you spaced it out the way that you did. Can you speak to that?
Sure. So spacing is incredibly important for our brains as well. And if things are smacked together, it's very difficult for our brain to process them as separate items. So when we're wrapping text around an image, we want to make sure we include some padding, and that padding will help the brain sort of see the end of the lines really quickly and separate the image from the text. But you'll see that the alignment still allows them to kind of be one thing together. So if you change the alignment, it's not automatically set to wrap the text, but you'll see if you change the alignment to left, now all of a sudden our headings are sort of off and the spacing is weird, and that's very hard to fix. So sometimes left works great, but with screen sizes changing from student to student, if we align right, it kind of prevents some of that. And then when you look at the padding, it's where it says vertical space and horizontal space. Somewhere between 10 and 20 in those boxes is a really good amount of space. Oftentimes I will only do horizontal space, but in this instance, to get our paragraph below it to wrap properly, we had to add the vertical spacing as well to give it a little negative space and help our brains find that text.
Right, and so here is actually the vertical space between here, and here is the horizontal space, the space between this font and this image, right? Or did I just say that backward? Okay.
No, you're right.
Okay, I'm
Sorry,
like, so did I just think that completely backwards? Okay, so your vertical space is the space at the top and bottom of the image, and your horizontal space is the space to the left and right of the image.
Yeah,
so
and in that editor, you'll also see the image description.
Yep.
Some images will automatically have an image description, but they're normally not descriptive. And
And Sarah,
so
can you, that's a great point. And can you tell them why, if they pull in an image and there's no description, why they should add it?
yes, because and Schoology doesn't allow for decorative images to be set, which is a little bit of an accessibility issue, but we can fix that by putting in a meaningful description. So if you don't put a description in, it will say unidentified image for a screen reader. And so the student will just keep hearing unidentified image, and they'll
Mhm.
potentially feel like they're missing something.
Mhm.
It also helps if a student needs an explanation of what that image is and they mouse over it and it's just blank. So even for seeing students or sighted students, if they mouse over it, they'll see that image description. So this one is descriptive. It says young woman holding pencil, ready to write.
Mhm.
Right? So it's not just girl.
Mhm. Yes, I really like that. And adding that image description, folks, when we're thinking about our text help, text supports, that's so important. But also too, as the student is, and I'm going to go out of this view of it, as the student is viewing this, oh, I don't know if we have a student in this course. Test student, good. There we go. All right. Now I got to find that. Week 7 ELA. Go back in here. Now I will say this, not everything works. Yeah, it doesn't quite, not everything in the teacher view, you get sort of a view. It's not a true experience. The student has to be logged in to be showing that hover item. But just so you're aware, you can view what the student is seeing. Note, this is a page, not an assignment, test, or quiz. If you go into the view as student and it's an assignment, you do not get to see their submit button. That can be confusing. That's why I always refer people to the Schoology support documents for assignments so that you can see both ends more easily. All right. Anything else that you want to add? Sarah, I know you weren't able to hop in right at the beginning. I did share, whoops, let me unpin you. All right, I did share your Better in 30. I did your design for the non-designer as well. I sent both that you shared with us. So I've got this one here. Is there anything you want to add or just share about these resources or future opportunities with University of Cincinnati?
Yeah, so this particular session, the design for non-designers, that is recorded, and the recording can be found on the Better in 30 website. If you watch that recording and you request contact hours, our office is a little bit behind, but they will send you a certificate for contact hours for watching that video. So you're welcome to do that and send it out to friends who may need it. We have another expert in there as well, joining me on that particular session. We walk you through the slides. Yeah, there you go. Design for non-designers. Today, we're actually doing a session at 12:30 for parents, but I think it's going to be helpful for everyone on the struggle is real. It's on engaging our learners in this environment and kind of helping them stay on task. So that's our 12:30 with Stephanie Nichols, who's one of the principals from Ohio Connections Academy for the middle school in particular. She's joining me at 12:30. Next week, we have, yeah, and next Monday at 2:30, we have our Better in 30 with David Clark, who is an amazing trainer from Butler County ESC, and Nathaniel Heading, who is a teacher at Kettering Schools and one of our graduate students. And they're going to be talking about redefining assessment or rethinking assessment in this age of remote learning. So that's going to be a great session too.
All right. Hey, thanks, Sarah, for joining us today. Thank you so much. You know, everybody in these groups, every time I've shared my visuals, I know last time I shared the visuals, I did share some of the research links from Philip Pulley. He's one of the first ones I started learning about within Schoology course visuals. But having Sarah as a local professor at UC and focused on this and sharing these resources with us was awesome. And now I cannot say, hey, I have the research somewhere. I've got it right here at my fingertips. So thank you, Sarah, for providing that research for us and those examples. All right, so now we're going to go back into my course. And I promised you I would show you some things building from scratch. All right, and so the things that I mostly end up showing when I'm doing visuals is add a page, because that can be transferred anywhere. So I did say that at about 20 till I would look at add a page. Whoops, excuse me, hit the wrong one. And making your announcements be a visual experience. I keep getting questions about that. I did release a Tech Talk tidbit, a 5-minute tidbit about that. But I have a lot of people who reach out to me and say, how did you make that update, have a clickable image, have bigger fonts? Like, how did you do that? Because that's not the settings in updates. So yes, updates are a space to grab your user's attention. And it's a really great way you can visually tie to course content. But I want to show another example of using sort of this, this idea as a pin course banner. And really it would kind of be a cool little tip to linking to meaningful content. So let me go back in this math course. I'm going to use this as my guide. And you know, I miss my primary stuff. So I'm going into kindergarten, or excuse me, I'm going to go into first grade ELA for week 7. Right, this is just going to be my content I'm linking to, and I'm going to show how to do that visually in my course. All right, when you are getting started from scratch, so this is the one that was by request, how do I make my updates clickable images? I'm going to show you how to actually tie it to meaningful content as well. So I do like to add a page, and I will tell you that if you're building it for updates, make that page unpublished, because that's not what you want to appear. The reason we want to make that page unpublished is because the content's going to be pulled into an update, and to avoid visual clutter in your course, your students don't need to see this. So I name my page Updates Not Published. And then this is how I got, the one that I got asked the most about was where I had the grid of 3 tiles. So instead of just those tiles, I'm going to actually link to course content in this example. So insert content, you guys, if you've seen any of my visuals before, we add an image here. But in this one, I want to organize my images. So I'm going to show a grid of 3. I'm just using a table. Now the table is going to bring in some formatting defaults that are going to help my visuals lay in a more organized way. All right, so then once I place my, and I know that it's very small for you to see, but when I inserted that table, it's tiny. And some people think, well, now I have to drag it out and make it bigger. Actually, don't do that. It will auto size and autofill. And so it'll fill the right space, whether it's on a narrow screen on mobile, or if it's on a big screen on a laptop or computer screen. So I just used insert a table, and I'm making this 3 across, because I'm going to show you how to make a visual update that we're going to pin as a banner. And this will be directions for my students to go in to course content. So I want them to go into this course content. And I think I want them to go to this, this reading. The spy will try not to cry. I don't have a visual on this specific one, but let's imagine for a minute my content has a visual on it. So imagine that 9th grade example. I kind of feel like I should use the 9th grade one now. I'm going to. All right. I'm going to go to the 9th grade one because of that visual in there. I want that. All right, I'm going to go right back to this one. Now, obviously, I'm going out of order. I'd want to order everything. You can really quickly, you've probably saved this image somewhere. I haven't saved this because this is one of the items that Sarah's students made. But I'm just going to grab a little snip of this. Now, this is because I'm pulling it out of my own content. I did get permission from Sarah to share this, so you don't just go snipping anything. This is something I built. Sarah, if you could drop in the chat. Are you still on the line? I don't know if she's there. She's rattled off a whole bunch of free websites for pulling free images yesterday, and so make sure the images you're pulling are free or that you create them yourself. All right, so student reading. I'm just saving this. I make a folder in my computer called Snips for Schoology because I do so much visual building, and I hit save. Okay, so I've got this example here. I'm going to also, I want to do a couple more short reading. Okay, this one is great. I'm going to grab that image. Now, normally I would probably already have that image because I built it, but if you pull in others' content, I'm just showing you how you can quickly grab these images. So I'm just snipping it, saving it. If you're on a Mac, it's called Grab or something like that. But just use your tool for grabbing images. Train. And I just want one more. Okay, great. This Quizlet will work. So I'm going to grab this snip. So I always like to include a how-to. This image won't look great because I want it to be about Quizlet. I would probably have a standard Quizlet image I would use, but I just need the image right now. I'm literally naming this one bad example. All right, so I've got those saved in my snips for Schoology. I'm gonna hop back in this course. I've got my 3 grid. I go to insert content. And I pull those images that I just snipped. And when I pull them in, they come in true to size. And for some reason, Schoology likes to add that blank space. So I always delete that. So I want to shrink them down to like a tile. And I'm going to insert the next image. Shrink it down. Delete the additional white space. White space is important, but for some reason, I don't like it the way it appears on the visuals. So, and for updates, remember, we're looking at a visual update. All right, and I'm going to insert my third one, my bad example. This is definitely a terrible example of an image to add, but you get the idea. That would be a tile maybe that showed Quizlet. Okay, I've created this. Now I just need to link it. Now I've shown you how to link images to external content a lot. Let's go back in that course. All right, this screen-free one, if I open that, don't forget that every URL is unique to, every page, assignment, activity, etc. has a unique URL. So you can just copy that URL, copy, go back over to where I'm building. Oops. There we go. And link it. Insert. I'm going to go back in my course to the one with the train departure. Copy. Link it. And this third one, I'm going to go back into my Quizlet vocabulary activity, copy, link it. Now, I would add more to this. I would certainly make this banner something a little more meaningful. I'm just showing you how I can make this into an update. Now, if it's an update, my message here, you can place it above or below it. I will tell you when I'm making updates, these headings add too much white space. They're great for organizing in your assignments, tests, quizzes, pages, use them. But when you are doing an update, just use paragraph. And then if you want it a larger font, then go ahead and select it as larger. Okay, so I've got my message. I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to create this page so I have it saved. Now it lives in my course as an unpublished document. My students are never going to see that. But when I go to my updates, all I did was copy from my page and hit paste. Everything transfers over. Now Schoology takes Schoology created items and transfers them over well. So when I hit post, then my students get an update that looks like this. Click, and suddenly they're in that assignment. So I would encourage you to come up with your course structure. Maybe the first image that you want is going to be, what you want them to start with. Do this now. And then what their routine, skill, and practice activities are. And then the last thing is maybe a link to where their assessments are. You organize those in folders. You could have this as a clickable image And now I'm going to show you how to add it to your course as a banner. So I can take the same thing, maybe without the image, and if I just click this little button right here and make it an announcement, when I hit post, that is now at the top of my updates and the top of my materials. So what I can do is create that visual, clickable and interactive banner that my students can go to. So for this, I'm going to go back into one of Philip Pulley's slide presentations. Now this is a side-by-side, so actually this is a little cluttered, but the content is fantastic. So this is my course structure, all right? And these are the activities inside of there. I'm gonna link to those. But then now he put a banner image. You can do a long wide images if you want. If you can see in here, the current unit, this is all done in that grid that I just showed you. I always call it a grid, it's a table. But this one, it looks like it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Bear in mind, on an update, it could wrap it. It could look a little weird on your update, but if you pin this, essentially what you've got is an interactive visual placeholder at the top that students aren't even going to need to go and hunt through these folders. They can click, and this image in the course is going to take me to the current study guide. I'll just relink it. This image is always going to take me to the course textbook, and so forth. This image is always going to take me to the videos, but for this week, the teacher could just update the link and it takes them to the new video. So use these design principles and organize your content. So have a course with great, simple, clean content, but add a visual to your update so that your updates are more engaging, and then the course has that banner. Now, fair warning, and I did say I would share this. When you do post this, the actual best thing for you to do here, because we are dealing with students remote learning at home and very often only able to access on a mobile device, I'm just going to repaste it here. Any image that I link to, I would also link to below here. I'm going to have to pull one more of those. So I'll just pull the Quizlet one, copy, drop that link, because I'm going to show you mobile here. And I would call this students link to Quizlet. Now I would make it, and I might even call it this week's link to Quizlet. So you kind of want to post what I call a directive link, meaning I don't just have a link, it tells me what it's going to take me to. If I just name it Quizlet, that's not as helpful. I might say students click here for this week's Quizlet. When I hit post, the reason I wanted to show that is because as a student, and for this, I'm ending with mobile, and then I'm going to be taking questions. I know there must be a few, but I'm going to stop presenting so you can see my mobile. I'm going into my Schoology app. All right. If you look here on my iPhone, those images did not show up in updates. They don't. They're just blank placeholders. Now, interestingly enough, I think it was Samsung, the blank placeholders did still work as links. I tested those. But if the teacher includes, whoops, I clicked out of that, sorry. Home. If the teacher includes that link does show up, and students can still go and complete that activity on their mobile device. So keep in mind that if you're adding images to updates, they do not work across all mobile devices. One thing that I was going to add to mine is a little button that says images not working, click here. And not a button, sorry, but hypertext. Images not working, click here. You often see that when you're on the web, on a website. Very often images don't work on a mobile device. They're working more and more lately. But like this one is really, this is my Samsung. I know it's difficult to see, but it actually says table placeholder, and it doesn't show the images at all. It says table placeholder. So then my students have to have this link, or else they have no idea what the content is in that update. So keep in mind as you build these visual updates, I think that they are great and you should do them, but keep in mind mobile compatibility and that you include hyperlinks, because look, once I included the hyperlink, it takes me straight there. So I tapped the hyperlink and it took me there. All right, but that should answer the question about how I create those. But today my goal was also to show you how to make it something that's more interactive with your content. So take examples like this. I shared this slide presentation in my last session. This is a very long slide presentation, and there it is all 100% Schoology specific. The course, not the completion rules. I don't know if I passed it. The unit home pages section is what we went over in my last session that is recorded. So I'm not going to repeat this, but creating that visual unit home page. We looked at this one a little bit together last week, and having those icons be something that you post for students to continually always go to. You can just change the link to match the new content, but it creates that repetition, that predictability that really Sarah's slides on visuals and on that CARP, the repetition part. If you use the same icons every time, always click this screen picture to go to the videos. It works beautifully. I do want to also note that all the images on mobile do work as soon as they open the assignment or activity. So I am going to open the 9th grade ELA. And because we spent a lot of time looking at that future me, see how it opens on mobile? I don't know how great you can see that, but the image is right aligned. The headings are clear to read. I can follow along on my phone. And then even that need help, I can zoom because it's a mobile phone. That's highlighted. My Grammarly link, I can click it and I'm going right in. So this is all mobile compatible, and the images do display very nicely on materials. So don't think that I'm saying don't use your images, that they won't show up on mobile. All the materials show up images, but course updates on mobile do not show up right now. All right. I'm going to stop for questions. Ashley, could you unmute and share any questions that there might be that I need to address?
We actually don't have any questions right now.
Awesome. All right. I kind of kept it simple. Today we went to the 2.0 level, getting a little deeper in the why visuals are important. And we looked at how to create better visuals, using not just the visuals of images, pictures, and clip art, but actually looking at the visual structure of text layout and how to build your course in a way that is visually engaging for the learner, that helps them more quickly connect with the content. My recordings, thanks Ashley, are on my YouTube channel. This one should be uploaded by the end of the day. I will say yesterday's, I didn't upload till this morning. Yeah, that's all I've got. Oh, it looks like there's another question. In the rich text editor, where did you click to add the link to the image? I can show that again. So it does not appear in the updates. When I'm in my materials, the sample I used was add a page. Let me be really clear. Everything I show today can be added to an assignment, a test or quiz.
Rose, you're not sharing your screen.
Thanks. I do that every time I share mobile. Thanks, Ashley. Every time I stop sharing to share my mobiles, I always forget to go back. All right, sorry about that. So the images and everything we looked at today, I did use add a page, but they do all work in discussions, assessments, tests or quizzes, and assignments. I did notice on the agenda, I forgot to look at embedded videos. The how-to is in my last one, but for that, I'm actually gonna go back to these examples because I did work with Sarah and some of her students on putting embedded videos into whatever they're working on. So I'll open one. Embedding the video will make, I went to the parent guide first. Embedding the videos will be better than just putting a link to a YouTube video. Now I'm not finding one with a video. All right, here we go. This is one. This is an embedded video, and the reason this is a better visual experience than just click here for the student is right away because YouTube allows you to upload a thumbnail, a cover for your videos. That cover shows, and it's giving me an anticipated response of, I'm going to see this video on this topic. The play button is right there. I've tested this on mobile. It opens very well. So embed your videos. To do that, let me go back to the text editing question too. To link to an image, I simply insert in an image. I'll use this one. Resize it, delete the space if you need to. Select the image. When it's blue, it's selected. You click on link, and then you can put the link to wherever you want them to go. So grab your link, drop your link, and hit paste. Now, if I'm going to edit this image further, this is what we looked at today. Right there, edit image. This is where I could type in that description. Student with pencil ready to write. If I'm going to have text around it, this is where we looked at putting in a vertical and horizontal space. The space in that example was 20. You can always just try 10, 15, 20, and take a look at it from there. I don't have text to wrap around this, but you can determine if the image appears to the left or the right. So this is where you update that image.
Can you make your screen a little bit?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So this is where I updated that image. I added the description, because as Sarah pointed out, that description wasn't there. Okay, and then we put in the vertical space down here. You can, if there was text here, I don't have text on this quick example, you can justify it left or right. All right, and then update. You can always drag the size. You can just drag it. I have never used this to do the size of my image. I have seen some people who design perfectly fit images for the course icon, and they do, they know the correct dimensions. They're smarter folks than me. All right, but that is the image. Now, if I wanted this instead of an image to be an embedded video, we are 1 minute over, so if you got to go, I totally understand. All right, pull up whatever video it is that you want to open my video. There we go. So all you do is right click on the video, copy, excuse me, copy the embed code, and make sure that I'm going to get rid of this one. Same button, image media, except this time it's from the web because you're pulling a video off the web, and it's a movie or media video. You'll notice the link changes to embed. Drop that embed code. It gives me a preview of what that video is going to look like. I can, if I want to embed my video with text around it, then I could go into some of these settings. Vertical space, horizontal space. So everything we looked at with a still picture, we can do with this as well. I'm going to make it a little smaller. Hit create. So all of those principles that we looked at in wrapping text around, oops, where'd it go? Well, I just lost it. So I don't know where I don't know where that just went. Anyway, this is what it would appear like. So, all right, since there were no other questions, yes, the dimensions are automatic when you place it, and then when you drag and drop, it does change, but you can change them if you needed to, if you wanted it to appear more narrow or wider or whatever. Sorry, my screen was small. All right, I can take a few more minutes if there are any other lingering questions, but I know a lot of people had to hop off right at 11. Oh, I was going to drop in Philip Pulley's presentation. I shared this in my last one, but it can't hurt to add it here in case you didn't attend. Visualize. Schoology next. And this is Philip Pulley. And when I was at Next, yes, I did ask if I can share this back at home, and it was a absolutely, please share. All right, so that's where you can go to get to that. As you're filling out your contact hours and feedback form, make sure that you mark this as, the topic that we did Schoology. And we are, today's May 1st, can you believe it? The training type, if you're on with me live, you joined a virtual PD session. If you're watching this on my YouTube channel later, you viewed a recorded virtual PD session. This was a 1-hour session, and Ashley Badgett is moderating your chat, and I am Rosemary Jane. Please mark both our names. Please rate today's training content, and then if you want to throw in an extra comment, we really appreciate it. There's a link directly to the rest of our virtual schedule, as well as our CPS Tech Talk. And if you need further training, if items in there don't work for you, you can click here. With that, I think I'm ready to wrap up. Ashley, unless there's something else. Are we good? I'm going to assume we're good.
I think we're good.
All right. Thanks so much, Ashley, for moderating the chat. As always, she does a fantastic job.